I wanted to join the military from the time I was about 5 years old. My whole family was in the Army. I grew up on, like, going to Fort Sill to visit my grandparents, and I just thought that was the way to go.
Okay.
Life experience. Needed to figure out what to do with my life, and that was a route to do that.
First place.
Young, average 18-year-old kid that wanted to be a warrior, wanted to be a Spartan.
I wanted to get away from my home.
Because everybody said I couldn't do it, that I wasn't strong enough, and I didn't want to pay for college.
Okay, the people that told you couldn't do it and you weren't strong enough, were those mostly males, or were you getting it from males and
high
female?
School. Well, you can't do it, you're a girl.
Okay.
So yes, males.
Males mostly.
But I should say I was the only female or person at all, period, from my graduating class that joined the military. So all the males that were telling me that I couldn't do it weren't trying to do it themselves either.
No, not really. No.
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 It was definitely a larger amount of males. And then the unit that I was deployed with was all males. It was an artillery unit. So
The career field that I was in a support operation, so they'd actually send me out as support to different units. So as far as if I worked out on the flat line, there was definitely a ratio of more men than women. If I was in more of an administrative unit, supporting the aircraft, or there was probably more of an even level, but there was definitely a ratio of men than women.
Okay.
It was all males.
There are a few females, yes.
Have you been in a unit where it was integrated or strictly male?
Both.
So you have been in a unit where it was strictly male?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I did have an incident, not in my unit, but when I was in training in AIT, we did a leadership development course. It was an obstacle course. And I found that I got the female drill sergeants were more likely to treat females differently. We were doing this obstacle, and it required us to build a human ladder to get everybody up over this 9-foot wall. And I was the, second to last person to go, and the person behind me was a male. And, I reached up and grabbed one of the female's hands, and he locked his hands out for me to put my boot in, and had already, lifted me up, and I was, in the process of pulling myself up, and she grabbed him and yanked him out from underneath me and said, she don't need no help. And I fell and broke my hip because she just refused to let a female be assisted by a male.
Do you think that came from the female drill sergeants thinking that they, as females, needed to prove themselves, so that you, as a female, also needed to prove yourself?
Yes, and that was, they preached it a lot. We're always very insistent that, the females not dress nicely when they were in civilians or whatever. They kind of tried to make them not be as female or not appear as female. But I think it was because in the time frame when they came in, I believe they were treated a lot differently. Especially, I don't know why, but it seemed like all of the female drill sergeants were under 5 feet tall. So there's kind of a little bit of that Napoleon complex too. So they, they were actually had more problems with the females treating other females that way, not so much the males.
I think everybody does, if you're male or female in certain points. You just have to prove your worth in the position that you hold. Making sure that when you go and try to achieve that job, you achieve it. If you don't achieve it, if you're male or female, you're going to be discriminated against.
So you never felt that there was things that, like maybe schools or anything like that, that you were not chosen for, someone else may have been chosen for because they were male?
Actually, with that, I would think that since I was more the minority part of it, they would probably choose me more to go than not choose me.
I think when it come down to being put on details and stuff, they'd look at it where, well, if we put 5 guys on this, they'd get it done a lot faster than if we put 3 females on it or 5 females, because the whole physical capabilities.
So any differences or any different treatment that you experienced came mostly because of your physical ability as a female, not necessarily just the inability to do things because you're a female?
I think it was just more of a physical ability.
Okay.
I have watched women being treated differently in that usually at like the lower ranking roles, a lot of times the young guys will try to do things for the women.
So not in a bad way, but maybe...
It's a very bad thing. It's very negative because then they don't learn their job. It's extremely counterproductive.
With her was I had to go to her to basically get my malaria medication and get my anthrax shots and just basic, checkups, and if I got hurt or something, I went there to get checked out, make sure I wasn't, didn't have a concussion, things like that.
You didn't feel like you were getting inferior treatment because she was a female and not a male?
No, definitely not.
Or that she couldn't do the role as not only medic but also soldier because she was a female?
I think she was capable of both because she definitely went outside the wire, and for the camera, that means outside of the fob, which is the base, and went up to operating posts and things like that. So she was capable, and she even had stories of being in combat situations while they were out. So yes, I believe she was capable.
How about other guys in your unit when they found out that the medic or somebody even just on the fob with them was a female? Did they have grumbles about a female being there? Maybe somebody thought she shouldn't be there, or what was your experience there?
Well, for the most part, everybody never really had any issues with her. She seemed like part of the group. She was married, and everybody knew her husband, so she never really had to deal with any problems except for one incident, where one guy was friends with them, and people were accusing them of having something going on, but I think that was speculation and jealousy, again, like the first example I had with Billy likes Sarah and so on. But other than that, that's it.
I think it's really awesome, simply because it's already been happening. The women have been in combat. I was deployed. I went out on missions with female MPs that were up in the guns. We don't have a line so much anymore, so that whole front lines, women are out there on mission just as much as men. It's just they don't have the same, or they haven't been able to have the same job title of infantry. but they're still doing the job. So I think it's just now there's going to be more recognition that they're out there doing it.
If they feel that they can achieve that job, then let them go out and do it.
So you have no concerns with it? Like everyone says, oh, we don't want our mothers or our daughters, being shot at.
They're already. I mean, if you look at history, we already have deaths and stuff due to, with women, due to that type of situation.
Well, women have been in frontline roles for a long time, but I don't see them as being capable of being in the special operations and most infantry.
Okay, why do you say that?
Generally speaking, for instance, women, like 25% of stress fractures in the U.S. actually come from women in basic training. Their legs, they're just less strong bone density, less strong tendons, less ability to handle excessive weight over long periods of time.
And that is required for both of those types of positions?
Absolutely.
So you think it's more of a physiological reason that women should not be in those roles?
I think it's more of there's probably probably realistically less than 1% of women in the Army that could fill those roles for any amount of time. And then when you take that, so let's say you have a woman who wants to be an infantry officer. So for the first 5, maybe 8 years of her career, she's really tough. She could hold up. But after that, continuing on with that stress of body, it's just going to destroy her. And then if she can't compete, then you're basically putting her into a dead-end job.
I don't think it should be allowed. Unless they can do everything to the exact same standard as the males. They shouldn't have to have different standards or standards or lesser standards. I'm not sure how you word it, but they should have to meet the exact same standards physically and everything. There shouldn't be, well, you can be infantry, but you just have to do this instead of the males doing so much more.
So when you say standards, are you talking about like physical training standards, weight standards? Are you talking about the actual training, like the
Both.
things that they have to do?
All of it.
All
Should
of it.
be equal.
So do you think that should be across the board in the military, that like all females should have to do the same score as males for PT, for physical training?
Yes.
Oh, wow, that's a tough one. I'm kind of torn. I believe it's Israel where everybody's required to serve some military time, and I think that would be a good thing, but our draft system is usually just for like wartime purposes. I think everybody should have to serve some military time just to have the experience, male or female.
So period, whether wartime or peacetime.
Right, but then you have the issue of, with the draft, if it's wartime, the women, there are mothers and things like that, so then who's going to take care of the kids if everybody goes away? So, there's, some logistics of it that I'm not sure it would be great for women to do that, but I do think everyone should have to serve some time.
The draft is different than a requirement of actually serving. The draft itself, I would think that everybody would have to be able to sign up for it. The call of a draft is different than a call of requirement of actually training, and being in for a certain amount of time.
Do you think everybody should be required to be in for a certain amount of time?
Absolutely.
Yes, I do.
Why do you think that?
Because it's America, land of the free. Everything's about equal opportunity. It's not equal if the men need to be signed up or have their numbers every year or whatever, and the females don't. It's not fair. It's not fair to the males.
Yeah, and I think they come further and further as years go on. But I also think in some ways there's too many allowances. I think that makes it more, I think that actually makes it harder on females because then it's more like they're getting special treatment. So, just across the board, people being treating others equally, needs to be a better, there needs to be better, there's a word I'm looking for.
Well, here's one of the things that has been proposed by some people is that women in the military would probably be better accepted if standards for like physical fitness and height and weight standards were across the board the same for males and females. Like, do you think something like that would make sure that everybody was exactly the same?
No, because physiologically we aren't the same. Just like in gymnastics, it's very difficult for women to do, the parallel bars because, our musculature is different. Not that we're not capable of lifting the same amount of weight and things like that, but when you talk about weight requirements and things like that, our body fat percentages are, physically they are different. If you try to make us the same, you're gonna, end up with like anorexic women who aren't capable of lifting a weapon. So, no, I don't think that those things need to change. But I do think that they need to be able to, lift the same amount of weight and things like that for certain jobs, because if you can't, then you can't do the job. And if you're not capable of doing the job, then you don't need to be in the job. So I think it should be more of an individualized, depending on skill level.
I don't really think, they're pushing females as a whole from where we started and being restricted to not doing anything with men and being more incorporated. That just comes with time. And
well, I'm not sure. I'd have to think about that for a while. But initially I'd say no, because people are always going to talk and speculate unless they're allowed to tell them that they have to keep that kind of stuff to themselves. Then no, I don't think there is.
Yes, their mothers could raise them better. That would be the ones who do that are usually the ones who are just very out for attention.
So you're saying if a woman is raised to hold her own and be an individual and not use her femaleness,
we'll go with that,
to get things that she wants, then maybe...
Or to get certain guys to do things for them, yes. And usually what ends up happening is that if they have good NCOs, they see that and they put a stop to it. And they develop them into good leaders.
So it's not necessarily an overall...
No, it's a lower enlisted thing. Usually it's a lower enlisted thing.
Okay. So do you think that it is a societal thing that women are taught to have men help them or do things for them that makes it harder for women in the military?
No, I think those individuals just come into the Army with weak character overall.
So it's not an overall problem for all females in the military?
No, not at all.
Do you think...
There are plenty of strong women that come in with the single goal of doing amazing things.
You don't think so?
Everything should just be equal, and then there shouldn't be any problems if it's all equal.
More or less.
The same.
More or less, everybody should have
the
same opportunities if they can meet the same standards.
Yes. But it's also America. You can't send a female to Ranger School because it's just not what Americans expect. Like, Daddy's little girl isn't going to be the first one rushing into war. It's going to be a strong male. That's just how it is.
Almost every guy, especially a combat arms guy, will tell you that if they can make it, good luck to them. I don't care if they make it or not. If they can do it, they can do it. I will take anybody that's competent to work beside me.
It was definitely a larger amount of males, and then the unit that I was deployed with was all males. It was an artillery unit. So
the career field that I was in a support operation, so they'd actually send me out as support to different units. So as far as if I worked out on the flat line, there was definitely a ratio of more men than women. If I was in more of an administrative unit, supporting the aircraft, or there was probably more of an even level, but there was definitely a ratio of higher of men than women.
Okay.
It was all males.
There are a few females, yes.
Have you been in a unit where it was integrated or strictly male?
Both.
So you have been in a unit where it was strictly male?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I did have an incident, not in my unit, but when I was in training in
My life, and that was a route to do that.
First place.
Young, average 18-year-old kid that wanted to be a warrior, wanted to be a Spartan.
I wanted to get away from my home.
Because everybody said I couldn't do it, that I wasn't strong enough, and I didn't want to pay for college.
Okay, the people that told you couldn't do it and you weren't strong enough, were those mostly males, or were
It's
you
like
getting it
the
from
whole
males and
high
female?
School, well, you can't do it, you're a girl.
I wanted to join the military from the time I was about 5 years old. My whole family was in the Army. I grew up on, like, going to Fort Sill to visit my grandparents, and I just thought that was the way to go.
Okay.
Life experience, needed to figure out what to do with me.
Okay.
So yes, males.
Males mostly.
But I should say I was the only female or person at all, period, from my graduating class that joined the military. So all the males that were telling me that I couldn't do it weren't trying to do it themselves either.
No, not really. No.
No, no.
No?
No.